My family told me the trip was too crowded already, but noticed $3,700 disappear from my account. Matching luggage sets, for hotel rooms, and amusement park passes. I didn't confront them. I filed disputes, froze the account, and revoked the travel insurance policy. At the gate, they were denied boarding. My brother texted, "They're saying we're flagged?" I sent back a thumbs up. I wasn't planning anything extravagant, just a solo trip to Seattle. I'd been meaning to go for years, catch a Mariners game, hit the Chahili Museum, eat ridiculous seafood, and pretend I was the kind of person who journals in cafes with brick walls. I'd been saving bit by bit, mostly skipping nights out, eating leftovers, and pretending Uber didn't exist. So, when I opened my bank app and saw $3,700 gone, I froze. I wasn't mad at first, just confused. Thought maybe I mistyped something or forgot a big payment. But the transactions were all there, clear as day. $689.99 for luggage from Samsonite for hotel rooms booked at Luggage and Golf Resort in Naples, Florida. Multiple charges for Busch Gardens. Prepaid meals, spa bookings, a few rideshare pre-orders. It was like watching someone live their best vacation life on my tab. At first, I thought I'd been hacked. But then I noticed the shipping address on the luggage was my parents' house. And just like that, the confusion drained out of me and got replaced with something heavier. I remembered about a year ago, I helped my mom buy something online when her card expired mid-checkout. I'd logged into my bank on her phone. Apparently, I never logged out, so they took it quietly without a word. My own parents. When I brought it up, my dad barely looked up from his morning paper. My mom said they were going to Florida and things had been tight financially, but that they figured I'd understand. I wasn't using the money right away, and besides, the trip would have been too crowded if I'd gone too. Like, that was supposed to soften the blow. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I just said okay. Then I went home, filed a fraud report with the bank, froze the account, opened a new one at a different bank, and canceled the travel insurance that had been bought under my name. I flagged any future bookings in my name and got email alerts for every possible airline they might try. 2 days later, I watched through my Delta app as the boarding passes for 4 flights to Florida. Mine technically were voided at the gate. 20 minutes later, my brother Josh texted me. "They say we've been blocked." I sent him a thumbs up emoji, just that I didn't feel the need to explain myself. He didn't reply. Josh was living in my spare room rent-free because our parents said he needed some time to get back on his feet after quitting his job last fall. I covered the groceries, the Wi-Fi, sometimes even gas money. I never blamed him for what our parents did. But he wasn't exactly innocent either. He knew what they did and still packed his bags for Naples like it was nothing. I didn't want enemies. I still don't. But that was theft flat out. They treated me like an ATM with arms. And when I caught them, they looked me in the eye and made it sound like I was the unreasonable one. But the truth is, I didn't stop them. I just started making them pay for it. And I was only getting started. They were supposed to be gone for 10 days. I gave them 4. On the 5th day, they were back in Charlotte, rolling their suitcases into their driveway like nothing happened. The LA Beach and Golf Resort had denied their check-in. Something about a payment discrepancy. I already knew. I'd flagged the transaction. The bank reversed it and the resort had no way to validate the reservation anymore. I even called the front desk myself anonymously to make sure. I didn't yell or explain anything. I just waited and listened as the manager told me calmly that yes, the booking was canceled and the room was no longer available. No refund. The system showed disputed funds. That was enough for me. The amusement park tickets voided. The luggage they ordered was marked. Returned to sender. They probably packed in plastic Target bags by the end of the trip. The last thing I saw from them before they went quiet was my mom's Facebook post. It was a picture of her holding our cat in her lap with the caption, "Some vacations don't go as planned, but at least there's no place like home," with a forced heart emoji that told me everything I needed to know. Josh walked back into the apartment like nothing had happened. He had the nerve to toss his sandals off at the door and ask if there was any orange juice left. I didn't answer. I just kept watching TV. He took the hint and went straight to his room. He didn't try to talk to me until 2 days later. I was eating cold pasta out of the pot when he sat across from me and asked if I was really going to make him move out. I told him yes. He blinked like it caught him off guard, like he still thought there was a chance I'd just get over it. I reminded him he'd lived in my place for nearly a year without paying rent. I paid for his groceries, his laundry detergent, the Uber to his job interview last month. All of it. Not because he forced me, but because I thought it mattered. Because I thought family looked out for each other, and in return he went on a vacation booked with stolen money and didn't say a word. He said he didn't know they used my account until after the fact. Maybe that was true, but it was what he did after that mattered. He still packed. He still went. He still sent me a photo from the plane with a dumb gift of someone wearing sunglasses. I told him he had 30 days. No more. Our parents started texting me again after that. Mostly my mom. Long paragraphs about how I was taking things too far, how I'd made my point. And now I was just being cruel. I didn't reply to most of them. Just read and close them. One day I got a message from my dad. It was a single sentence. Check your account. They transferred back the full amount. The entire $3,700. I looked at the deposit and stared at it for a long time. It didn't make me feel better. It just made things more complicated because now I couldn't pretend they didn't care. They were trying, I guess. But it didn't change the fact that they only did it after being caught, humiliated, blocked at the airport, and publicly made to cancel their plans. I didn't say thank you. I didn't respond. That night, I went to Josh's door and knocked. I told him the 30-day deadline still stood. He looked disappointed but didn't argue. Maybe he realized by then this wasn't just about him. He was a consequence of a much bigger betrayal. A week later, our parents showed up at my apartment without warning. I didn't let them in. We talked through the door. My mom apologized. My dad stood behind her and said they thought I'd be okay with it. That they didn't expect me to take it that far. That they just wanted a break from everything. I told them flatly I wasn't their safety net anymore. Not for travel. Not for bills. Not for Josh. If they wanted him to have a roof, they could pay for it. They left without saying goodbye. I stood behind the door long after they were gone. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. They broke something. And even if they returned every penny, they weren't getting it back the way it was. By the third week, things went quiet. Josh kept to himself, mostly job hunting from his room and tiptoeing around the apartment like a guest in someone else's Airbnb. I didn't go out of my way to talk to him. We live like strangers under one roof, which was probably easier for both of us. I started noticing how little my phone lit up. No more family group chat pings. No forwarded memes for mom. No weekend check-ins. The silence should have felt peaceful. Instead, it just felt weird. Like someone had pulled the plug on a machine I didn't even know had been humming in the background my whole life. A few nights later, I got a call from an unknown number around midnight. I didn't answer. A minute later, a voicemail came through. It was my dad mumbling something about mom having chest pains and them being in the ER. I didn't even finish listening to it. I sat there holding my phone, wondering if it was another guilt card. But curiosity got the better of me, and I checked their location through the shared Find My setting mom had forgotten to turn off. They were at Atrium Health Pineville. So at least that part was true. I didn't go. They had each other. And I wasn't their backup anymore. The next morning, I got a text from my dad. Everything's fine. Stress-related. She's resting. Then another one. We know we messed up, but you shutting us out like this is not right either. I didn't reply. I sat with it. Thought about all the times I'd said yes to things that felt wrong just to keep the peace. How every time they called it helping it really meant paying. I was done being the emergency fund they never had. I didn't owe them comfort. Then came the kicker. Josh knocked on my door and asked if we could talk. I let him in, and he sat on the edge of my bed like he was back in high school confessing to breaking curfew. He told me he got a job offer. Nothing major, just a warehouse gig with overnight hours, but it was a start. Problem was, he needed to cover a $1,200 car repair to get his old Civic back on the road. He said he'd asked our parents first, but they couldn't do it. They said they were still catching up after the canceled trip and the hospital bill. I almost laughed. They had no problem using my money for a vacation, but suddenly had nothing left when their younger son needed a working car. He asked if I could lend it to him. Just a loan, he said. He swore he'd pay it back. And here's the messed up part. I did it. I transferred him the $1,200 without another word because Josh, for all his passivity, wasn't the one who took anything from me. Not directly. And he had finally started trying. That counted for something. But I also told him this was it. No more extensions, no more free rent, no more brotherly bailouts. I wasn't anyone's plan B anymore. He said he understood and I believed him. I still kicked him out the following week. Not out of spite, just because it was time. And once he was gone, the apartment felt different. Not quieter, just mine. Josh moved out on a gray Sunday that smelled like rain and dust. He didn't have a lot. 2 duffel bags, a plastic laundry basket full of tangled wires, and a broken IKEA lamp he still insisted on taking. He didn't say much, just nodded and said thanks when I helped carry the last box to his borrowed Corolla. He stood there for a second like he wanted to say something else, but didn't. Then he got in, started the car, and left. The apartment felt bigger immediately, and not in a good way, just emptier. I thought I'd feel relief. I did sort of, but it wasn't clean. It was like pulling out a splinter that's been there too long. It hurts more after it's gone. 3 days went by before I got the first voicemail. My mom. Her voice was tight, like she'd been practicing it. Hi, honey. Just wanted to say we love you. Your dad's been well, we just want to talk. No pressure. Then a second one later that night, this time from my dad. Shorter. You've made your point, Ethan. Can we talk now? I didn't respond. By the end of the week, they stopped trying to get me directly. Instead, they outsourced it. First was a voicemail from my old high school principal. I hadn't spoken to the guy since I was 17. He said something about how he'd heard there was a family disagreement and that I should remember who raised me. I deleted the message before he could finish whatever speech he'd agreed to deliver on my parents' behalf. The next day, I got a Facebook message from Susan, my dad's former coworker. I met her once at a 4th of July barbecue when I was 15. She wrote a long rambling paragraph about how families go through tough seasons and hearts heal in time. She ended it with a Bible verse. Then came the final straw. My Aunt Rachel, who lives in Michigan and never once remembered my birthday, left a comment under a photo of my dog. Hope you find it in your heart to reconnect with your folks soon. Life's too short. Felt like an ambush. Like they'd started a full-scale campaign to guilt me into forgetting what they did. And the worst part, none of them even knew the real story. My parents were obviously controlling the narrative. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I texted both of my parents at once. Stop sending people after me. If you're sorry, be sorry. But I'm not going to forget that you stole from me and made me feel like the bad guy when I stood up for myself. They didn't respond. Finally, for the next couple of weeks, the silence settled in. The kind that doesn't feel like peace, just absence. I came home, made dinner for one, watched dumb movies, and stared at my phone more than I'd admit. Not because I wanted to cave, but because I couldn't believe how far it had gone. I kept wondering what would have happened if I just let it slide. If I'd let them take the trip and said nothing, would they have ever offered to pay me back? Or would it have just become another quiet expectation? Another thing I swallowed to keep the family afloat. I didn't miss the drama. I didn't miss the financial drain. But I didn't miss the idea of them. The version of my parents I used to believe in. The ones who taught me right from wrong. Who told me never to take what wasn't mine. It was like mourning people who were still alive. One night, I saw a text from Josh. Just a photo of his car back on the road with the caption, "Made it to work on time. Thanks again, man." I didn't answer, but I didn't delete it either. And that was the difference. I hadn't cut everyone off. I just needed space. Real space. And they needed to learn that apologies don't come with conditions. Especially not ones wrapped in social pressure and backdoor guilt trips. I hadn't decided yet what I was going to do about them. But for the first time, I didn't feel rushed. I wasn't angry anymore. But I wasn't ready to let them in either. It was almost 2 months before I saw them again. 2 full months of silence, no calls, no texts, nothing from anyone they might have roped in. I thought maybe they'd finally given up, accepted it. Maybe they were just waiting it out until someone cracked. Then on a Saturday afternoon, I came home from running errands and found my parents' car parked across the street from my building. It was the older one, the one my dad usually drove when he didn't want to burn gas. They'd been sitting there long enough for condensation to fog the windows. I stood on the sidewalk for a second holding a bag of groceries, just looking at them. The windows were up, engine off. My mom waved when she saw me. I didn't wave back. I walked upstairs slowly, took my time putting things away, sat on the couch, waited. They didn't buzz the intercom until 10 minutes later. I let them stand out there for 5 more before I opened the door. They looked tired, not broken, not desperate, just smaller than I remembered, like all the weight they thrown around before had collapsed inward. My dad started with the usual. We just wanted to talk. It's been long enough. We're not here to fight. My mom stood next to him, not saying much. She looked like she'd been crying for a while before they even got there. I let them in, not because I forgave them. I just didn't want to have the conversation in front of my neighbors. We sat in the living room. No coffee, no snacks, just straight into it. They said, "Sorry, a real apology this time. No excuses. No, we thought you'd be okay with it." Or, "We were going to pay you back anyway." Just an acknowledgement of what they did, that they violated my trust, that they treated me like a solution, not a son. They said they'd been talking to someone, a family counselor apparently, and they were trying to figure out how they ended up here, why they'd gotten so comfortable expecting things from me, why they didn't see it until it was too late. I listened. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I told them they made me feel like I was just a backup plan, that I didn't want revenge. I wanted boundaries. I told them I wasn't going to pretend nothing happened. And then I told them the new rule. No more access. No shared accounts. No passwords. No financial ties. Not for them. Not for Josh. If they needed something, they'd have to ask. And I had the right to say no. Always. My dad nodded. My mom did too. That was the first moment I believed they might actually get it. When they left, my mom hugged me. I let her. I didn't hug back. But I didn't pull away either. They didn't ask for anything. No favors, no money, just left. A week later, Josh called. Said he got offered a permanent role at the warehouse, benefits and all. Then he paused, awkward for a second, and said the brakes on the car were going out again. He asked if I could help, not pay for it, just lend him the money until the first paycheck cleared. I almost said no, out of principle. But then I thought about how he'd left quietly, worked the job, stayed out of the family drama. He'd done what I asked even when it sucked. So I said fine. I sent him $1,200. No speech, no conditions. But I didn't tell our parents. This was between him and me. And even though I still hadn't fully forgiven them, I realized something after that call. You don't have to burn the bridge. You just don't have to walk across it anymore. 3 months after everything unraveled, things started to settle. Not back to how they were, that part was long gone, but into something less hostile, more quiet, like the ground after a storm. Damp and weirdly peaceful. Josh texted me now and then. Nothing dramatic, just normal stuff. Updates about work, memes, even a dumb video of his car stereo cutting out mid-song. He paid back $200 of the $1,200 already without me asking. That meant more than any long apology ever could. I didn't reply every time, but I didn't ignore him either. We weren't best friends, but we weren't strangers anymore. As for my parents, we didn't talk much. They respected the space I asked for. I think they finally understood I wasn't bluffing. Every now and then, I'd get a forwarded recipe from my mom with no message attached or a photo from my dad of some project he was building in the garage. I didn't respond, but I didn't block them either. One Sunday, I saw them at the farmer's market. We locked eyes for a second. My dad raised his hand a little. My mom smiled in that cautious way people do when they're trying not to assume too much. I nodded. That was it. Just a nod. But it didn't feel tense. It just felt real. That night, I went home, cooked a meal I knew my mom used to make, and didn't cry or get nostalgic. I just ate it alone in the quiet. I didn't want to hate them. I never did. I just wanted to stop being the only one who had to hold everything together. A few weeks later, Josh asked if we could meet for lunch. He offered to pay. I said yes. We sat at this little diner near the warehouse where he worked. He told me he was getting a promotion, maybe moving out of state next year. Said he was nervous but excited. Said none of it would have happened without that loan. Then he asked me something I didn't expect. Do you think they'll ever really change? I didn't answer right away. I just sipped my coffee and stared out the window. Then I told him, maybe not. But that wasn't really the point anymore. They could change or not. They could get better or stay the same. But I wasn't going to let them take anything more from me. Not money, not peace, not guilt. We split the check. He left the tip. When I got home, I opened the old group chat with my parents and typed out one line. I'm not angry anymore, but I still need space. My mom replied within a minute. That's okay. We're here when you're ready. I didn't write back. I just turned off my phone and sat on the balcony watching cars pass below. None of them stopping. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel like I owed anyone a thing. Not even forgiveness, just clarity. And I finally had that. Spring came in slow, soft layers. The kind of weather that makes you want to open all the windows but still keep a hoodie nearby. It was subtle, like everything else in my life now. Subtle but different. I hadn't spoken to my parents directly since that message. They respected it. No calls, no guilt. Just occasional digital breadcrumbs, a forwarded article, a photo of the dog sleeping in a weird position. A thinking of you message from my mom every couple of weeks, nothing over the line, just enough to let me know they were still there. I didn't respond to most of them. Not because I was still angry, just because I wasn't ready to be pulled back into the gravity of what used to be the old way of things where my silence meant agreement and my help was expected without question. Josh was doing better. He called now and then, sometimes to vent about work, other times just to talk. He paid me back in full by the end of May. I didn't remind him. He just did it. And with every payment, he'd add a little comment like, gas was cheaper this week or still owe you lunch. He made it a point not to make it weird. And that helped more than he probably realized. We met for dinner once, a proper one, not fast food. He insisted on paying again, even left a tip big enough to make the waitress double-CH check the receipt. Afterward, he said he was looking at apartments in Asheville, thinking of starting fresh somewhere with more space and fewer expectations. I told him it sounded like a good move. He smiled and said it was nice to hear that without someone turning it into a lecture. Then he asked if I'd ever go home again. Not just visit, go home. I didn't answer right away. The truth was I didn't know. Home had become complicated. It wasn't a place anymore. It was a feeling I didn't trust. The smell of our living room, the sound of my dad's laugh, the way my mom used to cut fruit for breakfast, it all felt like memories that belonged to someone else now. But I told him, maybe not now, but maybe one day. That night, I got another text from my mom. No pressure, but we're doing a family cookout next weekend. Josh said, you might want to come. There's a spot saved if you change your mind. I didn't reply. I stared at it, then locked my phone. Saturday came. I didn't go, but I didn't feel bad about it. I went hiking instead, alone. No guilt. No explanations. Just air, trees, and the sound of gravel under my boots. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't anger or distance or obligation. I felt like myself again. Not their fixer, not their fallback, just Ethan.